Hi, this is Lorelei. I'm a degreed psychologist, graduated from the University of California at Berkeley. I am completely and fully retired forever. And I'm reading to you today an online article from HelloGiggles.com. The title of this article is 7 Reasons Why Having a Friends with Benefits is Better Than an Actual Relationship. The author is Karen Fratty, and I am just reading to you for Story Hour online here. The exclusive friend with benefits situation. It sounds like it should be easy. How hard can it be to find someone you like to hang out with, who respects you, who is also fun to romp around in bed with, without all the commitment of an exclusive significant other? Actually, it can be really hard to find one that works for you. We're all only human after all, and sometimes one of us catches feelings, toppling the whole glorious situation. It's not easy to make work all the time, but when it does, having a friends with benefits can be better than an actual relationship. The trick is knowing whether you want a friends with benefits or not. You need to be in the right headspace to make a FWB situation really work. Check your heart. Do you really want a partner, or are you just settling for someone else who just wants to fool around because the sex is good? Are you okay knowing that this partner doesn't have to be at your beck and call even after you've had a few glasses of wine? Because you can't drunk text your F-buddy for anything other than an orgasm. That's the thing, really. A friends with benefits situation demands communication and being respectful of each other's time, space, and needs. Just like in a real relationship, but without all the nonsense. Because the focus of this friendship is getting busy, not building a life together. Are you in? Here's why a friend with benefits is better than an actual partner sometimes. They're way more sustainable than relationships. A lot of people end up having more longer relationships with F-buddies than they do with people they actually date. You can have a friend with benefits for decades, ebbing in and out of it depending on what else is going on in both of your love lives. A lot of relationships you have in your 20s and 30s can be pretty short-lived, and once you break up, that's sort of it for some time. With a F-buddy, you can not see them for years, still like each other, and want to hook up. They know you. It still works after all these years because you haven't been sleeping with each other all the time. Like you do with a partner you're actually dating or living with. You can keep it fresh. You can be more upfront about what you want. There's something to be said for keeping it carnal, especially for women. It's not uncommon for women to come of age not knowing what they want in bed or feeling like they have to cater to another person's needs all the time. But there's nothing to worry about with a FWB, since you know that when you meet up to get down, that's all it is. A friends with benefits is a great person to try that thing you saw in a porn that turned you on practicing your dirty talk or whatever it is you want. Yes, being in a healthy, committed relationship is also a place for this kind of exploration, but with a F-buddy, asking for what you want when you want it is the whole point. Sleepovers are not necessary. When you start dating someone seriously, eventually there comes a time when you start sleeping over, cuddling, and basically change your entire morning routine. That's nice if that's what feels good, but it's also sort of a pain in the butt. With an F-buddy, you can choose whether it goes down at their place or yours, and no one is required to snuggle after sex if they don't feel like it. You get in, get off, and get on with your life, and you don't have to make that awkward conversation over coffee the next day. Your time is your time. We are busy people, and committed relationship takes time. You have to give a little of yourself to get something back and make it work, which sometimes is just impossible to do. There is such a thing as a wrong time to be in a relationship. That doesn't mean your sexual needs don't need to be dealt with. A F-buddy is great for these busy seasons of our lives. You get to spend a little time with someone whose company you enjoy and then get back to whatever you're doing to take over the world. Just totally refreshed. You don't have to introduce them to anyone. Having a F-buddy is like keeping a little secret all to yourself, and you know what? That can be powerful AF. No one has to know you even have a FWB or who they are or what you do with them. There's something super sexy about slipping out of a lame work party to meet up with somebody who just wants to go down on you. You can leave all of the drama in other parts of your life for later, like a vacation from your real life. Ending it should be easy. Sometimes a friends with benefits situation runs its course. Breaking up with anyone isn't easy, but ending it with a F buddy is simple. There shouldn't be any tears or heart wrenching discussions. If you're ending it with a F buddy, it's because the sex stopped being fun, you found someone else you actually want to date, or things got a little complicated in the emotions department. It's not like it's 100% hassle free, but the lines are usually more clearly drawn. They can always text them in a few months if you change your mind and see where you're at. There's no commitment, duh. You should actually be kind and respectful of anyone you're getting naked with, and demand that in return. But when it comes to a friends with benefits, you have no other responsibilities. You can choose how to devote your time to them and learn how to get better at setting boundaries and communicating them to a partner. Being in a relationship just isn't the end goal for some people who aren't ready to build their life around another person. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to get off now and again. There are all different kinds of F-buddies and tons of reasons for wanting one over a serious partner. Enjoy your friend with benefits if you have one, because a good one can be hard to find. By Karen Frati. So, now as a trained psychologist, I'm going to break that down for you and make my own independent, separate commentary. And some of the commentary is just based on my own personal lived life experience. The first comment I'd like to make is basically, is it easy to find somebody? And, my opinion is that typically men tend to be of a very R-selected mentality. Sperm is cheap and eggs are expensive. So it is a very common male fantasy that a lot of men would like to be as a honeybee going from flower to flower. That they would like to, sample everything that's out there. And that, for them, if they were going to actually, take a woman into their heart and into their home, this would be a very expensive proposition involving a lot of, expenditure of time, money, and emotion. So that is a very common male fantasy, and I do think that there's some problems possibly with the supply and demand curve, like the number of men out there looking for casual hookups, looking for no strings, looking for booty calls, looking for friends with benefits, looking for Tinder hookups is probably going to be somewhat greater than the number of women who would also like to enter into a similar situation, who would like to, skip the whining, skip the dining, and get straight to something else that rhymes with dining. So just this idea of, a supply and demand curve, I just don't know if there's a statistical reality out there for the number of men that are looking for casual hookups, if there is enough women for all of that. Or, if the women that are out there, have the same level of sex drive and need. So it is possible that, just due to the law of hypergamy and, men who are, very available, possibly not all that choosy, and the number of women that are out there basically trying to negotiate a more complicated deal for herself, that I do think that from the male perspective, it would be very hard to do. And just from my experience, of being, like, let's say, out at the gym and just observing, who's making hard eye contact with who, I do feel that that just based on my observation and my lived experience, snatches of little conversations that I've heard here and there, I have gotten the idea that, among the professional competitive bodybuilders down at the gym, among those who are extremely jacked and hung, that, 20% of the men who are the top 20%, the 8s, 9s, and the 10s, those top 20% of the men are seeing 80% of the action. So that is my feeling, that there's a little bit of a problem with the availability of women. The idea too of no strings. Like when you talk about no strings, it sort of sounds like you're separating the wheat from the chaff. So, the good part would be, all the humping and pumping, all the gyrating clockwise and gyrating counterclockwise, waving your legs in the air and wailing like the soundtrack of a porn film. But the ugly part, which represents the strings, would be, to have somebody by your side so that if you were in a really horrific car accident, nobody would visit you in the hospital, so you're getting rid of the relationship part and you're just getting into the good booty calling part. And for a lot of women, I just don't think that level of emotional abandonment really works. One of the benefits that people get out of friends with benefits supposedly is that all this can go on in secrecy. I would like to cast doubt on that particular narrative. I have noticed that if a woman thinks that she's getting involved with a respectful pervert, that, the idea of this respectful pervert is sort of an oxymoron. There is no respectful pervert. That, by their nature, perverts are not respectful. And, if you ask them to keep your secret, then they'll go out and tell somebody. But before they tell them, they'll say, this is a secret and don't tell her that I told you this, but, and then they'll fill in the blank with all your private information. So this idea that this is all like a dirty little secret, I just wonder if there's any reality there. The other possibility too is, in this article it mentioned, like, is this all going on at your place or his? For the lady, is it wise to be giving out your address? For example, like if you get somebody trained to come beat off at your front door, on days when their, male plumbing is congested and so forth, if they're going to develop some sense of entitlement. If there comes a time when you have an actual contender, like let's say that you had a candlelit dinner with a medical doctor at your location and you have an actual contender coming for an actual relationship, you may be handling this situation differently. If you're trying to develop an actual relationship with a man who has it in his heart to take a woman, into his life and into his home, if there's a possibility of a home, a shared future, and a family situation, and you found this actual contender who's a qualified candidate that you'd like to have an actual relationship with, is your, FWB that you've been fast tracking to the bedroom because the sex is good, is he now going to maintain your secret? Is he going to experience some level of entitlement mentality? Like if he was being provided with all these, physical, opportunities, to gain access to you in the past, if you were, providing for his, bedroom needs in the past, is he now just going to, very cheerfully, happily, and mindlessly, roll the 55-gallon economy drum of Vaseline out of the back of his closet and, get back to fapping himself with his customary porn channels, simply because you had a handshake deal with him up front, and it was understood from day one on this handshake deal that, at any time, due to no fault of his own, that you would just shoot him a text message saying, please don't come by this weekend because a better man is, here for a candlelit dinner. Is that a reality? Is the gentleman not going to experience any level of entitlement mentality? And, even this article, raises up the possibility that at any point somebody could get a case of the feels. Now, sometimes for women, I'd noticed that there's a certain, personality type of women who's, overweight, pathologically lonely, low self-esteem, and she may get this idea that if she makes herself, available, that she could tempt the man into, sampling her. And, on some basis that after a certain pattern, of samples, that he's going to be trained to come back and forth to her location, and that, that he'll decide that she's a quote really good person, or that, the sex is really good. And then, in the back of her mind, she's thinking that there's this hope that he'll fall into that black hole forever, that he'll just get sucked right into that black hole forever. And that if she just primes the pumps a little and get him started, that this is the path to a relationship, that, through the process of, making herself available, that she's establishing something or establishing a connection. And, I'm just shedding doubt on the whole issue and question of what's being established. I mean, is a bond being established, or perhaps the only thing that's really being established is the charity bordello for the financially indigent, like where people go to get comped a freebie, where an easy woman can be had with little investment of time, money, or emotion. And, right after she makes herself, available to do everything that an escort service in Las Vegas normally does for $300, that then he can just throw on his clothes and be on his way. And, he won't provide anything. Not only will he not visit her in the hospital after a horrific car accident, not only will he not swing by with chicken soup when she's sick, or take care of her emotionally, or, financially in any way, shape, or form. But, the idea that she's cheapened herself, that if a woman makes herself extremely easy, from a man's perspective, how does he see that? And, to my observation, I've noticed that quite a few gentlemen have sort of a virgin whore complex, that their psychology sort of runs in the directions of virgins or whores. So, women fit in one of two categories. And typically, if a woman is trying to have an actual relationship with a man, she will slow play him, that she will not, throw herself at him in that way. That she'll make sure, that she establishes more of a connection with him, because basically she's concerned about his tendency towards, an R-selected mindset, that a lot of men will just, that they will go from lily pad to lily pad, from flower to flower, sampling everything that's out there. And, if a woman fast tracks a man to the bedroom, that itself is damaging to the relationship, that he will then form a low opinion of her. And this is very culturally dependent. When I get this article, I get this idea that this is an article written to some sort of urban, millennial culture of, a particular cultural mindset, like possibly like, an Anglo-friendly culture. But there are other cultures of the world, and, certainly there's a lot of small towns where keeping a secret is not easy. And once a woman had made herself a receptacle and, a bucket, or, once she had become the village bicycle, if she had a reputation for providing, services, that are only compensated in lies and false hope, once she was known, whether she deludes herself to think that this is all a big, secret or not, there is a certain amount of locker room talk that goes around among the gentlemen. And so once she had made herself overly available and had a reputation for doing so, then hypothetically, if let's say that there was a contender that come along, some candlelit dinner, back at her place where she had some medical doctor arriving, and, she thought she was going to land herself a whale, that this, that she's going to get her Mrs. MD, and suddenly this is going to be the actual gentleman that she's actually marrying, that the idea that she was hooking up with this guy becomes a secret of great urgency. You know, that at any point, if the medical doctor finds out that she has a reputation for being the village bicycle, or if she was, mindlessly bobbling up and down on the carousel with some random dude that she met at the gym or whatever, and that this had been going on like right up until the night before her candlelit dinner with the medical doctor. The idea that this is a secret that's just never going to come out in some sort of a small town. I just don't know if there's any reality there. And the idea that the gentleman is good in bed, I'd like to question that as well. Is he that good in bed? Just because you didn't take your time to establish much of a relationship with him, just because you're making yourself a low-cost alternative to an escort service, just because you're fast-tracking him to the bedroom, there's some presumption there that he's going to make this up to you, and that, I have hardly ever seen a reality in all my life where the woman was quarterbacking the man around in the bedroom. That's a very unusual scenario, that the woman is quarterbacking the man around, or that, if she's doing everything an escort service does for no money, then what that really means is that he's there to service her and not the other way around. Typically, here in the state of Nevada, when Dennis Hoff hires a lady to work at any one of his 17 licensed brothels in Nye County, he actually gives them a class on emoting, like a trained method actress. Like, emoting is what an actor does. Like, if you're trying to emote pleasure, then you'll gyrate clockwise, gyrate counterclockwise, agitate like a washing machine drum, wail like the soundtrack of a porn film, wave your legs in the air, curl your toes, whatever. And a lot of times the gentleman actually prefers that type of service. Like, they actually refer to that as a girlfriend experience, where there's a high level of emoting. So typically, like, if a man is saying, I want a woman who is really getting into it, that she's getting red-faced, puffing, panning, wailing like a banshee or whatever, usually, again, that may not even be part of her experience. That could be part of, her emoting and faking orgasms for his experience. So, that he's looking for a woman who emotes, usually, like I said, is something that a man is doing because it's consistent with his own ego needs, that he wants to see himself as, being good in bed, that he's a pleasure provider, he's imparting pleasure to ladies, that's part of his newfound identity, that, yesterday he may have been, a dweeb, a nerd, a fat, ugly dude, whatever, short and rejected, but today he's, having this new experience, and, he's living in his own suspended reality of what his prowess is. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, just let me ask you one final question. If you had a handshake deal with somebody on the front end, like, if you went down to the gym, made hard eye contact at, the professional competitive bodybuilders that look like they'd be capable down at the gym, and you had a handshake deal that you were gonna, put out for an indeterminate period of time, and that your location was the venue where all this was gonna go on, that they were just gonna show up for an hour, make a big mess on the sheets, and then leave you alone to do your laundry and provide the maid service to clean it up independently afterwards. If that's all your relationship consists of, is them showing up for cost-free services or whatever, are they in fact good for that kind of a handshake deal if you made that kind of a handshake deal with them? At no time would he enter into a delusional state of entitlement mentality. He wouldn't become, stalkerish, demanding, delusional. If there was ever any attempt to later date at your part on your, at your house, if you shot him a text message and said, "Hey, I'm actually dating somebody. Please don't come by this weekend," then he accept that cheerfully. And I'm just shedding doubt and asking that question. But feel free to comment in the comment section if you think that you know expectation matches reality. If you had a handshake deal with somebody, if you believe that they'd be good for their end of the deal, or if you even had this level of communication and respect with the person, if you found yourself this very special personal pet pervert with long silky eyelashes that you wanted to cut from the herd and comp a freebie to, if you wanted to provide him with, cost-free coochie or whatever on the weekends, and you had some handshake deal that, you both knew that he wasn't a worthy contender, and that at any point you could just cut him off from access to coochie, due to no fault of his own, just simply because you found a better man, is that a reality there from the lady's perspective? Is that actually going to happen just because you had a handshake deal with him, and let's say he robotically nodded and bobbed his head like an oil drilling rig, and in order to get into your apartment and into your panties, he goes, "Oh yes, I agree to that. Surely, just text me anytime. I'll let me know and I'll go away." Is that reality? But anyway, go ahead, like my video, share my video, and by all means leave me a comment. And thank you so much for joining me for Story Hour. Take care and you know, have a safe time. Be very careful giving out your address, especially ladies, be very safe.